Night pressed against Alex Carter's windows like a held breath as the voicemail played. A trembling voice whispered, "They know where you are," and the line shivered into static. Alex stared at the phone as the house ticked with cooling pipes. He stepped onto the porch and the crickets fell silent, as if signaled. A scream tore the dark from the alley by the sycamore, and then died clean. Alex said, "Hello?" And the single word felt thin and breakable. He followed the sound, feet crunching glass near the curb. A small metal charm lay on the asphalt, etched with symbols that curled like smoke. The air smelled of wet leaves and copper, and a wind raised the hair on his arms. He crouched and reached but stopped, sensing the street watching him. Alex said, "Who's out there?" And a far radio hissed, then cut. The charm hummed like a trapped insect, and the night folded closer. Alex carried the charm inside and the house breathed like old timber at sea. The voicemail replayed, but the whisper fractured into fragments. He laid the charm on the kitchen table, beside a cracked map of county roads. Alex said, "Where did you come from?" as if it might answer. The symbols seemed to rotate when the light shifted. A fridge hum settled into the same pitch as the charm's tremor. He checked the back door and found mud on the mat that was not his. The clock stuttered and then caught, losing a minute he swore he had. Alex said, "If this is a prank, it isn't funny," and his voice sounded borrowed. He opened a drawer for a magnifier and found a folded Polaroid. The photo showed a street he did not know, and a date that hadn't happened yet. The Polaroid smelled of fixer and rain as Alex studied its ghostly street. A storefront sign was smeared, but a clock in the window read a time approaching now. He held the charm near the image, and the tremor aligned like tuning two strings. Alex said, "This place is close," though he could not say why. He traced a route on the map, by instinct more than memory. The porch light blinked twice as if agreeing. He pocketed the charm, and the house seemed to exhale. Alex said, "I'll be quick," and the floor creaked a warning reply. He locked the door, and felt the key hesitate, then turn. The night outside had shifted tones, deeper and strangely emptied. The county road ran like a black ribbon through fields that smelled of iron. Fog hugged the ditches and swallowed sound to a soft hush. The charm's pulse guided him, a heartbeat against his palm. Alex said, left at the silo, as if following directions no one spoke. A shape flickered at the edge of his headlights and vanished cleanly. He slowed, and the radio found static shaped like words. A battered mile marker read numbers that did not match any map. "D?" Alex said, "Almost there," and the engine answered with a restless purr. The fog rose as if pulled by unseen tides. The road bent toward a cluster of dark roofs where no town should be. Alex parked near a rusted signpost whose letters were erased by time. The charm warmed, and the fog opened a narrow corridor ahead. A main street appeared like a photograph dipped from developer. Storefronts kept their lights off, yet the windows felt watchful. Alex said, "Is anyone here?" and silence crowded the reply. A clock tower showed a time that matched the Polaroid to the minute. He stepped onto brickwork that rang with hollow echoes. Somewhere deeper, a lone chime counted once, and then forgot to keep going. Alex said, "I found you," though he feared the town had found him first. Alex stepped onto the main street, and the fog pulled back as if revealing a stage set. The town looked abandoned yet too carefully arranged, like furniture after guests leave. Windows reflected pale dawn, but no faces looked out. A diner sign buzzed with power, though the glass inside was dark. Alex said, "This place shouldn't be here," and his voice scattered into the silence. He walked past storefronts, where shelves were stocked with goods that looked untouched. A wind lifted a newspaper from the curb, its headline dated decades ago. He bent to touch it, and the print smeared wet against his skin. A shadow crossed the window behind him, though no footsteps followed. Alex whispered, "Someone is watching," and felt the charm beat faster. The town exhaled like a throat clearing, and he realized he had stepped into something preserved, but not forgotten. Alex pushed open the diner door, and the bell rang with a strangely hollow tone. Inside, chairs were neatly stacked, counters gleamed, and coffee cups waited filled but cold. He touched one, and the porcelain was icy as stone. The smell was faintly sweet, like sugar gone stale. A jukebox in the corner blinked faint red light, selecting songs no one played. Alex said, "Hello? Anyone here?" And the hum of the lights faltered. A shadow bent across the booth behind him, though he stood alone. He sat briefly, feeling the leather seat warm under him as if someone had just left. He scanned the counter and saw a plate of pie untouched, the crust still fragrant. He reached out, and then stopped when a fork shifted an inch on its own. Alex whispered, "I know you're here," and silence pressed tighter. Leaving the diner, Alex found the street changed subtly, storefronts rearranged as if moved while his back was turned. A post office sign hung crooked, doors ajar, though no breeze stirred them. He stepped forward, and his reflection lagged a half-second behind in the window. Alex said, "This isn't right," and rubbed his eyes, but the reflection continued moving after he stopped. A whisper curled from an alley, too soft to name but urgent. He followed, heart pushing against his ribs, into the narrow lane where bricks bled with damp. The walls closed inward, claustrophobic, and the ground tilted as if leading him down. At the end stood a figure turned away, long coat hanging heavy. Alex called, "Wait," but the figure dissolved when he blinked. Only the damp bricks remained, dripping with condensation like sweat. At the edge of the alley, Alex reached the town square where a dry fountain stood cracked with moss. The clock tower loomed overhead, hands stuck at a time matching the Polaroid in his pocket. A faint sound of shoes scraping stone echoed though no one crossed. He turned sharply and saw a woman standing near the fountain, dressed in gray clothes from another era. She met his eyes without expression, then looked away as if dismissing him. Alex said, "Do you live here?" But she walked behind the fountain and vanished in silence. He stepped closer and found no footprints, only moss bruised as if pressed moments before. The charm pulsed harder in his pocket, the air sharpening with cold. Alex whispered, "You know me," though the square offered no answer but its frozen clock. Alex circled the square, unease stretching each step. A grocery window displayed produce bright as if harvested yesterday, yet dust coated the shelves inside. A dog barked far away, but no animal appeared. He paused near the hardware store when a hand touched his shoulder. Spinning, he found a stranger, a tall man in dark coat and hat, face partly hidden. The man said, "You shouldn't have come," in a voice both warning and tired. Alex swallowed and asked, "What is this place?" But the man shook his head slowly. His eyes glinted sharp before shadow covered them again. The air between them carried static like an old radio tuning. Before Alex could press him further, the man stepped back into fog and vanished. "Alone again," Alex muttered. "Then why was I brought here?" As the town seemed to listen. Morning thinned the fog, and Alex followed the square to a records office that smelled of damp paper. Dust hung like gauze in stale shafts of light. The charm vibrated against the folders, as if impatient. A ledger waited open on a desk with dates that skipped like scratched vinyl. Alex said, "What did they erase?" and found columns crossed out with careful ink. A footstep clicked behind him and stopped before it should have. A woman stood in the doorway with rain on her coat and calm in her eyes. Claire Bishop said, "You shouldn't read what the town keeps for itself." Alex asked, "What is this place hiding?" and the ceiling creaked as if listening. Claire studied the charm and flinched as if feeling heat. She said, "It answers to the old boundary, and the boundary is hungry." The bell over the door rang once, though no wind moved it. Alex said, "Then help me," and the ledger's pages riffled without hands. Claire led Alex through a back lane to a junk shop stitched from two collapsed stores. Bells tinkled in odd intervals, as if remembering different hours. Inside, jars of screws and moth-napped curtains shared space with occult pamphlets. An elder sorted postcards with the care of a jeweler. Edith Marrow said. The town swallowed a promise and never digested it. Alex showed the charm, and the metal answered with a low hum. Claire said, he heard a warning last night, and Edith smiled without mirth. Edith touched the charm with a knitting needle, and sparks crawled like frost. She said, these marks point inward, not outward, which means return, not summon. The ceiling fan clicked in a rhythm that mapped a route on the counter. Alex said, where does it lead? And Edith slid a faded map forward. She said, follow the river that isn't on your map, and do not look back. The bells rang again, counting a number he could not name. They stepped into the lane and a patrol car idled as if it had always been there. A broad man leaned on the door with an expression of tired authority. Sheriff Dalton Reeves said, town lines are closed today, like a courtesy and a threat. Alex said, I'm looking for a river that isn't on the map, and the sheriff's smile thinned. Reeves said, maps keep people honest, and tapped the car roof twice. The engine coughed the same number and settled. Claire stood still, choosing silence like armor. The radio inside the car murmured a name Alex did not recognize, then dead air. Reeves said, tourists had lost out past the mill, and his hand hovered near the latch. Alex said, I won't be a problem, and the sheriff nodded without agreeing. When Alex blinked, the cruiser stood 3 feet closer, and tire tracks pointed both ways at once. They cut across the mill yard where the river should have sung, and found only dry stones. A memorial wall stood near the loading dock, names etched shallow as if reluctant to stay. A photograph was fused under glass, a girl smiling in a sun that felt borrowed. Claire said, she vanished the night the sirens failed, and the wind withdrew. Alex studied the date, and felt the Polaroid in his pocket echo the moment. He said, Lily Hart, reading the plaque, and the charm went cold as iron. Footsteps scraped behind the wall, measured and patient. A man leaned at the corner, hands in coat pockets, eyes dark and steady. Jonah Pike said nothing, but watched as if counting Alex's breaths. Claire said, he keeps score for the town, and Alex felt a line drawn across his path. The sky lowered, and the yard smelled of rain that would not fall. The line led them to a pedestrian bridge where the river appeared only as mist. The boards creaked with a voice that knew names. A figure waited near the center, hat brim hiding his eyes, coat hanging like rain. Thomas Vale said, you brought the key, and Alex felt the charm answer in his palm. Claire whispered, you again, as if the stranger belonged to earlier trouble. Vale said, every path here loops unless someone pays, and the mist tightened its circle. Alex said, pays what? And the bridge shuddered. Val's gaze flicked to the memorial as if through time. He said, a debt left by those who built without asking, and held out an empty hand. Claire said, do not give it, but the charm grew unbearably warm. Alex said, tell me how to break this, and Vale stepped back into the veiling steam. His voice faded, find where the river forgot its bed, and listen for the second bell. The square was silent when Alex and Claire returned, but the clock's hands had moved, though no one touched them. The bell tolled once, rattling windows. Sheriff Reeves emerged from the shadows, uniform pressed, eyes weary. He said, you should have left while you could, and rested his hand near the holster, though his voice lacked conviction. Alex said, you know what this charm is, and Reeves flinched like struck. Claire whispered, he was there when it began. Reeves said, we buried it so no one would have to carry it. Alex asked, bury what? And Reeves lowered his eyes. The fountain groaned, stone cracking, water bubbling black though dry moments before. Reeves said, you don't want the answer. The ground trembled, and the bell rang again, louder. Claire said, he's hiding something that could end us. Reeves turned, shoulders bent, walking away as though carrying a sentence he could never lift. The ground split near the fountain, and a cellar door yawned open. Claire said, it's leading us, though fear pinched her voice. They descended into stone tunnels, lined with rusted pipes, walls damp and breathing, with dripping echoes. Lamps flickered weakly. At the far end, a mural stretched across the wall, painted with frantic hands, symbols like those carved into the charm. Alex whispered, "The same marks," and touched the stone, feeling it vibrate. Claire said, "This was done to hold something back." A crack ran through the mural like a wound, leaking light from beyond. Suddenly, Edith Marrow appeared in the shadows, lantern in hand. She said, "I told you not to look too close." Alex asked, "You knew all along," and Edith nodded slowly. "Some debts rot but never vanish," she said. The lantern flame bent sideways though no wind stirred. The mural groaned as if shifting under their gaze. The mural split with a groan and revealed a hidden chamber beyond. Inside, a child's toys were scattered across dusty floorboards though decades old. Claire said, "They hid someone here," voice trembling. A faded photograph leaned against the wall, Lily Hart smiling in sunlight. Alex whispered, "The victim wasn't lost. She was sealed away." Edith said, "She was meant to keep it quiet. Her silence feeds the town." Alex said, "You sacrificed her," his voice breaking sharp. Edith shook her head, but her eyes betrayed knowledge. "The town chose, not me," she said. Claire pressed a hand to her mouth as the toys rattled. From the far wall, a faint humming rose, familiar and dreadful. The charm answered with violent heat. Alex shouted, "This is wrong," but the room darkened as if agreeing. The photograph fell flat, the smile face down on the dust. A low moan rose from the walls, shaking dust, loose in waves. Claire said, "We need to leave," but the tunnel shifted like a throat closing. Edith backed away, lantern sputtering. Alex said, "Tell me who ordered this," but Edith only whispered, "The sheriff signed the silence." Claire said, "Reeves knew," her voice bitter with betrayal. Alex felt the charm pulse in rhythm with the walls. The air pressed against them, heavier with every second. A shadow spread across the chamber like ink in water, stretching toward the floor. Alex said, "It wants out," gripping the charm until his palm blistered. Edith dropped the lantern, and its flame gasped into darkness, but the shadow glowed faintly. Claire pulled Alex by the arm, but his feet locked as if rooted. Somewhere above, the bell rang for the third time, shaking the chamber to its bones. They stumbled back to the surface as the cellar closed behind them with a heavy slam. The square was empty, but Reeves stood by the patrol car, shoulders bowed. Alex shouted, "You signed away her life," voice raw. Reeves said nothing, only stared at the clock tower. Claire said, "You let the town feed on her silence." Reeves finally turned, his eyes wet and hard. "It was the only way to keep us alive," he said. Alex said, "At what cost?" and the bell tower struck again, echoing across the roofs. Reeves whispered, "You've woken it now, and there's no going back." The charm blazed like a coal in Alex's pocket. Claire said, "Then we break it, no matter what it takes." Reeves shook his head slowly, backing toward the car as if retreating into old sins. The square lights flickered, and the clock hands spun violently forward. Stormlight crawled along the rooftops as Alex and Claire hurried from the square. The clock had spun and then frozen again, as if time were a reluctant accomplice. Alex said, "The second bell means the boundary moves." Claire answered, "It moves when memory moves." They reached the library, whose doors were chained with ribbon instead of steel. The ribbon looked ceremonial, stained by rain and something darker. Inside, dust swirled like handwriting in the weak light. Alex said, "Records survive where people fail." Claire murmured, "Or they lie better." A ledger waited on a reading stand, margin notes written in the same hand as the mural. Footsteps tapped overhead, though the upstairs was sealed. Alex traced a date tied to Lily Hart, and the ink shivered. Claire said, "If the town eats silence, we starve it with truth." The floor vibrated gently, like breath before a sob. The ribbon on the doors tightened of its own will. They broke the ribbon and stepped into a reading room preserved like a shrine. A glass case displayed a brass seal, engraved with the same spiral marks as the charm. Claire said, "Town Council seal," and the lights flickered in assent. Alex lifted the case, and a chill ran across his knuckles. The seal rang a low note that made the windows quiver. Claire said, "If the council bound the river, this unlocks its mouth." Papers under the case mapped a route that intersected the memorial and the bridge. Alex said, "Second bell, forgotten bed, council seal." The pattern aligned and dread arrived like weather. A chair scraped behind them, though no one sat. Claire whispered, "We are not alone," and the air brightened as if someone smiled without warmth. The charm cooled while the seal warmed, trading pulse and power. Outside, the rain steadied into a metronome. They carried the seal to the memorial, where names gleamed like damp stone constellations. Jonah Pike stood waiting with his hands in pockets and eyes unreadable. Jonah said nothing at first, letting silence work like a tool. Alex said, "You counted every loss and called it balance." Jonah replied, "I counted what kept the lights on." Claire said, "At the price of a child." The wind paused, letting the words fall clean. Jonah nodded once, as if marking a tally that hurt to keep. He said, "The river was bound so the mills could run through drought. The council owed the water a voice." Alex said, "And you gave it Lily Hart." Jonah's eyes flicked to the dry bed like a confession. He said, "The seal returns the voice, but it also returns the flood." Claire held the seal as if weighing a sentence. The clock struck a muffled half-beat, wrong and warning. Sheriff Reeves squared the corner with the cruiser crawling behind him like guilt. Reeves said, "Put the seal down," but the plea arrived late and bruised. Alex said, "You signed the silence," and the cruiser radio hissed like a snake. Reeves answered, "I signed a town that kept food on tables," though his voice broke. Claire said, "You signed a life away," and Reeves closed his eyes. The charm and the seal beat together, rhythm tightening until it hurt. Reeves whispered, "If you unbind it, the town drowns, and the dead won't forgive you." Thunder rolled without lightning, as if the sky was thinking. Alex said, "Let the river judge us." Reeves reached, not for his gun, but for the seal, handshaking. Claire stepped between them and the square lights dimmed. Somewhere deep, the second bell chimed, soft and exact. The riverbed exhaled a thread of mist like first speech. Night arrived with sudden conviction as they reached the bridge. The mist thickened, forming a channel where water should have been. Thomas Vale waited near the center, coat like a shadow given shape. "Vale," said, "Second bell paid, now speak clearly." Alex raised the seal and felt the charm subside. Claire said, "Return what was taken and end the debt," voice steady. The bridge thrummed as if a harp string had been plucked. Vale nodded once, almost kind. He said, "The river listens, but it remembers who bound it." From the mist, a voice that was not wind whispered Lily Hart's name. Alex said, "We will unbind and bear what follows." The seal flashed dull, and the mist surged, forming the ghost of a current. Vale stepped back and vanished as if dismissed by tide. The bridge shivered, and the first true water fell like a held breath released. The river swelled from mist into dark water that licked the bridge supports with urgency. Alex held the seal aloft as the charm burned cold against his chest. Claire said, "It's listening, but it isn't convinced." The current churned with faces that surfaced and dissolved, mouths opening in silent accusation. Alex whispered, "Lily, I know your name." And the current paused, forming a child's outline. The voice came, not from water but from the air itself. They promised silence. Claire said, "We break promises when they are wrong." The bridge groaned, and Bolt screamed as though tearing free. Alex said, "I offer myself if it ends with me." The current hissed and recoiled, yet did not fade. The sky cracked with lightning that showed the town roofs trembling. Claire grabbed Alex's arm and shouted, "It wants truth, not sacrifice." The seal pulsed once, bright enough to blind. The storm broke open above them, hammering rain against the planks. A figure stepped from the fog. Jonah Pike, coat plastered to his frame, eyes haunted. He said, "Truth destroys faster than silence." Alex said, "Truth frees what silence chained." Jonah's jaw trembled as he revealed a blood-stained ledger tucked in his coat. Claire said, "You kept the record." And Jonah nodded slowly. He said, "I counted wrong, and the river counts perfectly." He opened the book and pages fluttered without wind. Names glowed faintly, one after another, each feeding the water below. Alex said, "Lily Hart was not chosen, she was given." Jonah dropped the ledger into the current, and water seized it eagerly. Claire whispered, "He confessed," as the storm hushed for a heartbeat. Jonah closed his eyes and stepped back, dissolving into the mist without scream or splash. The water rose higher, curling like hands around the beams. The bell tower struck a fourth time, though no one touched the rope. From the opposite bank, Sheriff Reeves appeared, soaked and pale. He shouted, "Stop before you drown the town," voice breaking under thunder. Alex said, "It was drowned the moment you traded Lily." Reeves stumbled forward, shoes slipping, but he pressed on. Claire said, "He still holds the key to bind it again." Reeves pulled a worn badge from his pocket and held it like a talisman. "The badge was sworn over the seal," he said, "and oath still holds power." Alex said, "Then you are the last chain." Reeves wept openly, face carved by lightning glare. He said, "Better me than all of us." He raised the badge toward the storm, and the river hissed, recoiling in pain. Claire grabbed Alex's hand and whispered, "Don't let him do it." The river screamed, voices overlapping in 1,000 broken tongues. Reeves staggered closer, badge trembling in his hand. Alex shouted, "You can't bury her again." Reeves said, "It's all I know." Claire stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Then learn another way," she cried. Lightning tore the sky, illuminating the ghostly figure of Lily Hart in the current, her face serene yet mournful. Alex whispered, "We remember you," and the charm burned hot. Reeves looked at Lily's face, his strength faltering. He dropped the badge and it clattered against the planks. The river surged, dragging the badge away in foam. Reeves fell to his knees, sobbing. The storm paused, holding its breath. Lily's image lingered before dissolving into ripples. Claire said, "She's free," and Alex closed his eyes in grim relief. Yet beneath the calm came a deeper rumble, more ancient than the town itself. The river erupted, blasting spray high as rooftops, the bridge shaking underfoot. Alex cried, "It's not finished," as the seal cracked in his hand. Claire said, "Then we carry it through." A roar deeper than thunder bellowed from beneath, and the town lights flared then died. Reeves whispered, "We woke something older than guilt." The boards snapped one by one, as water forced its path through forgotten bedrock. Alex held Claire tight, shouting, "If it takes us, it takes the truth with us." Claire gripped his arm and answered, "Better that than silence again." The storm spiraled above, clouds opening like a vast eye. The river poured forward, flooding the streets below, devouring old lies with every wave. Reeves staggered to his feet, voice hoarse. "The debt is paid," he said, before the water swept him away. Alex and Claire clung to each other as the bridge split, plunging them into the furious current. Dark water flung Alex and Claire into a flooded street, where storefront signs bobbed like wreckage. Alex gasped, "Hold on," and his voice broke in the spray. Claire caught a lamppost and hauled him into the lee of a doorway. The river tore past, carrying tools, letters, and a child's tin horse that rang like a bell. Alex said, "It let us live," and the charm cooled against his chest. Claire answered, "It spared the truth, not us." Far off, the clock tower clicked as if relearning time. Windows opened along the street, faces pale, then shut like blinks afraid to finish. Alex said, "We tell them what was done," and a silence gathered that felt ready to bite. The water lowered an inch, then another, leaving silt-like bruises across the bricks. They moved toward the square where the fountain now ran clear, as if rinsed of years. Edith stood beneath the clock, lantern dark in her hands. Edith said, "It took what it was owed." Alex replied, "It took what you tallied." Claire's gaze cut through the distance like a verdict. She said, "We name Lily Hart, and we name those who traded her." Doors opened wider, townsfolk stepping out with careful steps. A boy held a bundle of ledgers wrapped in cloth, offering them as if surrender. Alex said, "We will write this in open daylight." The clock advanced a single clean minute. Claire added, "And we listen when the second bell rings again." The square smelled of metal and rain, and the town seemed to breathe without wheezing for the first time. By noon the streets steamed, and the library opened its windows to vent ghosts of damp. Claire laid the brass seal on a table beside the rescued ledgers. Alex said, "We keep it where any hand can reach." Edith approached and whispered, "If you leave it bare, someone will bind again." Claire answered, "Then we teach until binding tastes like ash." A girl placed the fallen photograph of Lily on the stand, face up at last. Alex said, "Your name stays loud," and the room agreed with a soft stirring. Thunder mumbled far away, no longer a threat but a memory clearing its throat. The charm dulled, the seal cooled, and the air lost its clenched jaw. Outside, the river spoke in ordinary syllables, water against stone. At sunset, Alex and Claire walked the repaired bridge where carpenters nailed fresh planks. Thomas Vale stood at the far rail, hat shadowing a tired smile. Vale said, "Debts end poorly or end clean." Alex replied, "We chose clean, whatever it costs." Claire asked, "Will the town stay on the map now?" Vale studied the current and said, "It will stay as long as you speak." He tipped his hat toward the west and let the dusk fold around him. Alex said, "He's never far," and the river accepted the words without ripple. Claire squeezed his hand, and the bridge no longer groaned beneath their weight. The second bell rolled once across the water, sounding less like threat and more like breath. Night returned clear and thin. Stars pricked like pins above the roofs. Alex stood at the rusted signpost where he first read nothing and found everything. Claire said, "When morning comes, you go home," and he heard both gift and warning. He answered, "Home is different now." A payphone near the pole crackled, and a child's voice breathed, "Thank you," before fading to dial tone. Alex closed his eyes and said, "We carry you with us." The charm lay quiet, its marks no longer burning, only etched like scars that learned to cool. The town lights held steady. Somewhere a dog barked once, ordinary and alive. The final hush felt earned, and then the dark smiled with a secret it chose not to keep.